Hey up! Right, today I'm going to look at the new Motone FORNO heated winter gloves. I've been waiting for these for quite some time. I can't do an unboxing because the box that I was sent with these is a pre-production box, so it's not really representative of what you're going to receive these in if you choose to buy them. Now, I would describe these gloves as a full-length winter glove. They're designed to come well up above the cuff. Whether you're going to be able to get these underneath your jacket or not is, well, it depends really on your jacket itself. Now, Motone have chosen to make these from goat skin for winter use. I know goat skin has a slightly lower abrasion resistance than cowhide, but they've chosen that because it is more supple and it does contain a lot of lanolin, which helps with waterproofing. Having said that, these do have a waterproof membrane as well. Now, that's a bit of a moot point regarding abrasion resistance because these have passed CE testing, so they are legitimate PPE for wearing on a motorcycle. Now, yeah, I remember back in the old days, 1980, especially coming home from a night shift in the morning when you know, the temperatures were at the lowest in winter. It used to be horrible. I remember I used to, on the way home from work, I used to completely lose control of my hands, and I used to pray for traffic lights, believe it or not, so that I could just take my hands off the handlebars and put them on the engine to get a bit of warmth through, which did work, but it didn't last very long. You know, with the wind chill, it would soon rip all the heat away from your hands. Now, of course, we do have heated grips available for a lot of motorcycles these days. The problem with those is really they only warm the palm of your hand, and the outside of your hand, I've found, still gets really cold, almost to the point of not being able to use it. So although a heated grip does give you a bit more time in the saddle when the weather's cold, they're not, if I'm honest, you know, the ultimate solution to keeping your hands warm. Obviously, the other problem is a lot of motorcycles don't come with the option of heated grips, so you're looking at something like Oxford grips, which I've always thought aesthetically aren't the best. For me personally, I think heated gloves are the best option if you're doing a lot of commuting in cold weather during the winter. Enter the Motone Customs FORNO gloves. Now, heated gloves are not a new concept by any stretch of the imagination. I think they've been around at least 20 years. In the old style, you used to have to conceal a battery somewhere inside your jacket, or you would actually have to plug into the bike to get the electricity supply to power the gloves. Not ideal, especially if you forgot that you were rigged up to the bike when you tried to get off it. These are much simpler. Each glove has its own 3000 milliamp hour rechargeable lithium-ion battery. Now, these can be charged inside the glove. You don't have to take them out, but they are also removable via a jack if you need to for charging. You know, that makes it handy. All you have to do is basically unfasten the waterproof zip, and then you can plug your charging cable. And now this charging cable comes with them. It's a USB-C to a twin USB-C, which is probably the most common type of charging cable nowadays. You don't have to remove them because the charging port is actually on the back side of the battery, so you can just plug it in on the back like that, charge both up while they're still in the glove, or of course you can take them out and charge them out of the glove. Now, there is an indicator light on the battery, constant red while they're charging, which tends to green when they're fully charged. Now, I suppose one disadvantage of having the battery in the glove itself, I mean, they've done the best to make this as slim and unobtrusive as possible, but it does create some bulk on the inside of your hand or your wrist, which some might not like. I think, you know, it's one of those things really where you would get used to it. We have an adjustable cuff which is fastened by Velcro. I mean, personally I prefer press studs, but you don't get the micro adjustment that you get with Velcro. So for something that's quite bulky like this, you know, the option of having micro adjustment I think is a sensible idea. The gloves don't feel too thick. I mean, they do feel like a fairly thick winter glove, but I've had winter gloves in the past that are far bulkier than this, and this is one of the reasons that they've gone for goat skin, is because it's a much more supple, flexible leather than cowhide is. The gloves feature a touchscreen sensitive pad on the end of the forefinger and the thumb. I've tried this out, it does work, but because, you know, they are a bulky winter glove, it's not quite as responsive as it is on their summer gloves, but you know, that's the trade-off with a winter glove. It's got to perform its function. Now we've got a reinforced panel with some sort of armour at the heel of the hand here. We've also got a reinforced thumb panel and some sort of reinforcement on the back on my little finger there. I'm not quite sure what that's about, but I mean, they're a nice looking glove. On the back we've got some stitch detailing here. Other than that, they're a fairly plain motorcycle glove. Now here we've got a rubberized switch. If you press it and hold it down, that activates it, and I'm not sure if you can see in this light, it's much clearer indoors. You've got a battery indicator here with 4 positions on it: fully charged, 3/4, a quarter, and empty. So that's handy for sort of, you know, looking at it and assessing whether you've got enough charge to get you through your next trip. We've also, if you press it again, we've got a green light for the lowest setting, a blue light for the middle setting, and a red light for the hottest setting. So what I'm going to do, at the moment here it's 3.5 degrees. I don't think it's going to get any warmer, but obviously this is the perfect sort of weather for trying a set of heated gloves out. So what I'm going to do is get my wet weather gear on, get out on the Honda for half an hour in this terrible slippy slidey weather, and we're going to put these through the paces and see how they do. Now I'm going to turn this off because it's one long press, by the way, to switch it off, because I want to try them from cold to assess how long it takes for them to warm up, and whether you get any sort of wind chill before the gloves get into sort of, you know, full heated mode. Now these are, as a belt and braces job, they do have 3M Thinsulate sewn into the lining, which should help retain the heat that the gloves themselves are actually providing, to stop too much heat leakage. Also, just to protect your hands at the beginning of the journey, to give you a little bit more time while the gloves get heated up properly. So I'm going to get out on the road and see how they work. Now, us human beings, irrespective of our skin colour, are essentially a tropical species. We don't cope very well with cold temperatures. In fact, we're better at shedding excess body heat than we are at retaining heat in cold conditions. Now, our bodies haven't been able to adapt to cold conditions. You know, we have no hair on our bodies. We don't cope with it very well. It's the human brain and our ingenuity that's allowed us to live in cold climates. By artificially keeping a thin layer of what is essentially tropical temperature air around our body, by keeping that air in, wearing clothes. Now that's all well and good, but riding a motorcycle in cold weather, and by the way, I later discovered it wasn't 3.5 degrees centigrade, it was 2 degrees centigrade, especially once you got out of built-up areas, does present some challenges for human biology. What essentially happens is, once you're exposed to cold temperatures, your body goes into a sort of survival mode. It needs to keep your core body temperature, you know, that's your trunk and your brain, at the right temperature, so that basically you can stay alive. And what it does is it restricts blood flow to your extremities, you know, your hands and your feet in order to slow down heat leakage, because, you know, your hands and your feet waving in the air at speed, it's basically like having radiators on an internal combustion engine. It cools your body temperature down, so your body restricts the flow of blood through your extremities in order to keep your core body temperature up. Now, the problem that has is that obviously with the wind chill on a motorcycle in cold weather, your hands soon reach the point where they won't function anymore. And the idea of these gloves basically is to artificially keep that blood warm so that you've still got full use of your hands and to some degree comfort. Now, this actually gives you an overall advantage of well-being, because the blood in your hands isn't being cooled down and then returned to your body. It also means that your other extremities and your core temperature are not affected as badly, because instead of having cold or cooled blood returning to your body, you've got blood which is the same temperature as your body being returned to your body. So overall, your body will lose less heat. Now, all in all, what I did, I stayed on the bike for about 40 minutes, driving at speeds of between sort of 40 and 60 miles an hour as the road conditions permitted. I had to be careful because it was quite slippy in places. And I chose 40 minutes because, you know, I thought that would represent your average commute to or from work. So we could assess whether or not the gloves were able to sort of stably maintain a comfortable temperature, or whether it would eventually succumb to, you know, quite extreme cold and wind chill factors. Now, I was wearing an open face helmet without a snood on or anything, so, you know, within a mile my face was stinging as the cold bit into it. That happened very quickly. Now, about 15 minutes, I remember thinking to myself that, you know, I couldn't really feel any heat coming from these gloves. I mean, there must have been heat, because at 15 minutes my hands should have been freezing cold, but there wasn't. They felt cool but comfortable, and it was only at that point that I looked down and I realised that I'd actually set the gloves on the coolest temperature. So I turned them up to full temperature and things got a lot better. And I have to say, throughout the entire ride, although I can't really say that it was like having central heating in your hand, you could feel the heat, because, you know, that wind chill was just wicking the heat away all the time. My hands felt comfortable, sort of body temperature all the time. You know, there was no point during this journey that I felt as though the gloves weren't working and doing the job. But you know, I'm not used to heated gloves. I've not owned a pair of heated gloves before. I expected my hands to be piping hot, but they're not. It just keeps them at a normal body temperature. I'm usually a glove size extra large. These gloves are an extra large and they're fitted perfectly. No sort of reservations over sizing whatsoever. I would stick true to size. They are quite thick because obviously, you know, they've got that thin sealer in there, they've got the waterproof membrane, and you've got quite thick leather with some padding. So, you know, they're not like a pair of summer gloves, but manual dexterity is reasonably good. I didn't have any problem activating the switches on the switch gear. Everything was fine. I soon got used to that extra thickness. Now, my big worry was whether I would be able to sort of integrate the gloves with my jacket properly. I had my Ashley Watson winter jacket on. They did slide underneath that jacket quite easily. And the other pleasant surprise is I was wearing the thickest, bulkiest watch I own, the Planet Ocean. Normally with gloves I do have some issues with this watch. It's hard to tuck them under, especially, you know, I thought I was going to have problems because of that battery on the inside of the wrist, but it did just stretch over it quite comfortably, and I was able to get the gloves inside the sleeve of the jacket. So yeah, quite happy with that. You know, this is often a part with any glove where I encounter problems and often can't fasten them up, or, you know, all sorts of issues. And I think the big thing that vindicates these gloves, you know, this particular section that you see now, by this time the cold was getting to my, you know, the main part of my body. I was starting to feel cold. I wasn't uncomfortable, but I was starting to feel cold. and I still had the gloves on the lowest setting here, but my hands felt quite comfortable. Now, it's at this point, about 15 minutes into the ride, that I realised I still had them set on the lowest setting, so I just switched them up to the full setting, and things, although they weren't bad, did improve substantially. And as you can see, the gloves are very easy to adjust on the fly. It was very easy just pressing the button and switching them up to the highest setting while the bike was on the move. No issues whatsoever. Now, I did have some errands to run while I was filming this, so I did the 40-minute ride, and then I just did 10 or 15 minutes running about to different shops and places to get some essentials in that we needed. What I did is I left the gloves switched on, and even when you're walking around in a supermarket or whatever, the temperatures are quite low, especially when you're around the chillers, etc. My hands did get very cold, and I've got to say, when I put the gloves back on, because they've been left switched on and there was none of that wind chill wicking the heat away from them, it was a really welcome feeling slipping your hands into warm gloves. Legs don't work. Right, turns out I was lying about the temperature. Once you get out of town and into the sticks, which is where I did all the riding, it's only 2 degrees. Now, the first thing I noticed within 3/4 of a mile, I just had an open face helmet on. My face was stinging something wrong. So it's definitely, once you get that wind chill on you, it really starts pulling the heat away from your body. 3 miles, I've got my Ashley Watson winter jacket on here, really good quality jacket, I swear by it, but that wind factor moving around in these temperatures, it was just pulling the heat out of my body, but my legs went before my body did. Knees were freezing cold, legs were cold. When I got off the bike, I've been doing a few errands, so I went for like a half-hour ride, and then I did 15-20 minutes just popping around to different shops to get some supplies in that we needed. So yeah, pulled the heat away from my face. Face was really cold within less than 5 minutes. Really uncomfortable. My face was stinging. Then my knees started, and it even got to the stage towards the end of the ride where I was getting that burning sensation in my legs that you get when you are really cold. The jacket kept me reasonably comfortable. I was cold, but it was doing its job. I was comfortable. I could cope with it. The gloves, it just felt like I was riding around in sort of room temperature. You can tell that the wind chill is pulling the heat out of these gloves. There's no doubt about it. If I wear them in the house, put them on for 5 or 10 minutes, you can really feel the heat. But the wind chill is just pulling the heat out of these. Now, on the lowest setting, it was cool but comfortable. So I whacked it up to the top setting, and it was a bit above body temperature. You could definitely feel that there was working. Even with my little fingers, which are usually the one that goes first, everything felt comfortable. I still had full use of my hands. I wouldn't say that you could really feel the heat once you get moving around at 50-60 miles an hour. And as I say, it's only 2 degrees. I wouldn't feel that they felt warm. It was on top setting, it was sort of tepid. On the bottom setting, my hands felt cool, but it was keeping the blood at the right temperature. It was allowing your body basically to do what it needs to do, getting the blood pumping round your digits, etc. So everything feels comfortable, everything works perfectly. Total of 40 minutes riding, mainly at full power on these, and I'm still getting a full 4 bars on the battery, which is impressive. So I mean, I don't know, long term it might pull the battery levels down quicker, as it goes down through the battery storage. But I think for your average 30-40 minute commute each way, you're definitely going to get 2+ days, maybe 3 days. I mean, I don't know, you might get a week out of them. I'm actually quite impressed by the battery life on these. But all in all, I mean, at the end of the day, these are new gloves. They do feel a bit weird because I'm used to riding with other gloves. That takes a little bit of getting used to. They're also a lot thicker than what I normally wear, so manual dexterity to me does feel a little bit compromised. But it's a winter glove. What more can you expect? Now, what I did notice when I went into shops, etc. Obviously, you take your gloves off. I left them on. I left them switched on. I didn't mess around with them. I left them switched on. So while I was walking around the various shops, the gloves were still on. Now I noticed, because the weather is cold, as it always is when you're walking around without any gloves on, my hands soon got very cold once I got off the bike. But they're not switched on now. But what I did notice, as soon as I sort of started handling the gloves, you could feel the warmth emanating from them. So definitely doing the job. It's I wasn't really sure what to expect, because I've not used heated gloves before, but I expected a really warm, toasty feeling. It's not like that. It feels to me like only the back of the glove is heated, which at first disappointed me, but it's doing that job of keeping all the sort of blood vessels and tendons, etc., on the back of your hand at the right temperature, so you don't feel cold and your hand operates properly. Because you know what it's like when your hands get so cold that you can't use them; they're unusable. But what it's done is it's keeping the blood temperatures up in your hand. The rest of your hand, obviously, it's right around the grip most of the time, so no heat's escaping through there. And thinking about it, there would be no point heating that point. What I don't like with heated grips is you often have a situation where the grip is really, really hot. It's sort of a nice feeling, but then on the outside of your hand, I mean, I can feel the temperatures pulling the heat away from my hands now, but on the outside of your hand, it's freezing cold, and it does give you a weird sort of uncomfortable feeling. But with these gloves, I'm pleased to report, it just feels normal. It feels just as it would be if you were riding around in warmer temperatures where cold hands are not really a problem. So it gives you a normal sort of riding experience where your hands aren't too warm, they're just comfortable all the time. I've got to say, all in all, I'm quite impressed with them. Now, what I didn't realise before I went out, I've got to say, when I was walking around outside the shops and then it came to put the gloves back on, because I'd left them switched on, I felt lovely, because my hands had obviously got quite cold while I was walking around outside. It felt lovely and warm when I put them on. It was a really nice feeling. But what I didn't realise at first is you do have a pull tab on the inside of the glove to enable you to pull it on comfortably, because otherwise you're pulling at the edges of the glove, which isn't always good for the glove. So yeah, that was a nice handy feature. I've got to say, as I say, a new experience for me, because I've never used heated gloves before. It was a really nice experience. I mean, when I got home, my legs were so cold, I did actually have trouble getting off the bike, because my legs weren't quite working properly. But it was just nice to be in that situation. It was nice to be able to compare different parts of my body and the way that these cold temperatures have pulled the heat away from my body, but my hands just felt normal. So yeah, it's not something that's like having a really warm electric blanket that gives you a sort of artificial heat feeling in your hands. It feels sort of normal and natural. I'm impressed with them. Now, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this and my other videos, and in doing so helping to support this channel. I really do appreciate it. I'd also appreciate it if you would hit the like button and the hype button if it is available to you. I know it's not available to everybody. I think it's usually only available on a phone. But you know, it does help out. It's getting harder and harder for your videos to get noticed on YouTube now as it gets more crowded, and they're sort of bringing in new sort of hurdles for you to jump over in order to get your content noticed. So it is appreciated if you would hit the hype button. Also, subscriptions. I'm still getting loads of complaints from people that they've been unsubscribed, or they're subscribed but they're no longer getting notifications. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe, or if you were a subscriber and you've been unsubscribed, subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell and that your notifications are enabled. Something like 80% of the views this channel is getting at the moment are non-subscribed people. So, you know, just make sure that you've got all those boxes ticked. It does help me out, and you know, if you do want to follow what I'm doing, it helps you out as well, because you don't have to go searching for my content. Now, there are other ways that you can help me out via my Patreon page, PayPal donations. The details of how to do that are in the video description down below, or you can use the super thanks button, which seems very fashionable these days. I am of course going to be back next week, so until then, please ride safely, and I'll see you soon.